Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to do today's video because I've been wanting to do it since last year, since 2020, when a bunch of YA authors announced that they would be releasing adult romances. So I've been biding my time since those announcements, waiting for arcs, waiting for the releases. And today, finally, I have 5 adult romances from former YA authors, former young adult authors that I'll be talking about. But before I get into all the romance books and authors, I do have a sponsor for today's video. Today's video is sponsored by the app Kiss. Kiss Read and Write Romance is a reading app that you can download on your phone or your tablet, and it is perfect if you love reading romance. There are a bunch of indie authors, even some traditionally published authors like Tessa Bailey, Penelope Ward, Tijan. It's a great reading app if you've been looking for some more romances to read, and some of them are free. The way to read these books is through the in-app coins. You can use these coins to pay for books, pay for chapters to read. There are different ways to earn coins. You can get them for free with the daily check-ins and also reading for a certain amount of time. You can, of course, also pay for coin bundles. There is a lot of different kinds of romance content for you if you're a rom-com lover, or maybe you love reading mafia romances. They have everything categorized and organized really well, so you can just search up your favorite trope, like an office romance, and it'll all show up on the app. You'll see that there are a bunch of free reads in addition to the books that you can use your coins on. So if you're interested in checking out the app, I'll leave a link to download it in the description below. I am no longer a young adult reader. I don't read YA anymore. I used to back in middle school and high school, but pretty much as soon as I graduated high school, I just stopped and completely moved on to romance. Although I was already reading romance by the time I was in high school, but I was very curious when some YA authors that I had heard of before and some I had never heard of before were going to release adult romances. Some of the books that I read were the author's actual first adult debut romance, which is really exciting. But I will say I did not read their YA books. I've only read one of the author's YA books way back when, so this video is not gonna be like a comparison kind of video. It's just more like a I'm so excited that YA authors are writing adult romances. So the 5 authors that I read were Amalie Howard, Emily Henry, Lily Menon, also known as Sandhya Menon, Rachel Lynn Solomon, and Trish. The first author that I read was Amalie Howard with The Beast of Bezek. I had actually heard of Amalie before. I've seen her young adult books around, but I never read them, and I never read her before reading The Beast of Bezek. Surprisingly, if you didn't know, The Beast of Bezek is not her debut adult romance. She's written romances before and historical romances before. After she published a couple YA books, she released the Lords of Essex series. That actually sounds really good. Book 1 is like a Robin Hood type of romance, so I do want to read it. But I just went with reading The Beast of Bezek because I love myself a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is a historical romance, and like I said, a Beauty and the Beast retelling with a marriage of convenience. We've got a broody, growly hero who's always a pain to be around. Astrid, the heroine, is trying to protect her younger sister from this predatory man who ruined her years ago, so she decides to get some help from Thane, from our Duke hero. She offers herself up to the Beast of Bezek and they enter a marriage of convenience. I had a lot of fun with this one. I really enjoyed Amalie Howard's writing here. The banter is witty and great. There's a lot of good back and forth between them, though I think my main complaint about this was just that the hero Thane was too hot and cold, always pulling Astrid in and then pushing her away immediately. So that did get tiring to read after a while, but overall I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely want to read more of Amalie Howard's historicals. There's a second book in the series. The Raquel of Roth is actually about Astrid's younger sister, the one she was trying to protect. So this one was great, a really enjoyable historical romance. The second author that I read was one that I loved last year. It was one of my top favorite books, top favorite romances of 2020, and I'm sure you can probably guess, but it is Emily Henry. Her adult debut romance was Beach Read from 2020, and I loved it so much. So I was crazy excited to read more from her, and I was so happy that she was writing more adult romances. Although a lot of people do consider her more women's fiction, but I found myself really happy with the romance and would still consider them romances. When I read Beach Read last year, I had no idea Emily Henry was a YA author. I thought she just wrote adult fiction, but no, she's an actual YA author that a lot of people love. I just never heard of her before because I think Her books were after my time. Yeah, I checked on Goodreads and her debut book, her debut YA, published in 2016, and I'd stopped reading them by like 2014. So she was new to me, but I loved Beach Read, and of course, as soon as I got the art for her next book, for her second adult romance, People We Meet on Vacation, I had to read it. I ended up loving People We Meet on Vacation. I give this one 5 stars. It was so good. I don't know if I love Beach Read or People We Meet on Vacation more, but they were both just perfect. This one sadly isn't out for another month. It's out in May, so I'm excited for everyone to read it. It's a friends to lovers romance, and as soon as I heard that it was gonna have this trope, I was dying for it because friends to lovers is one of my favorite tropes. This romance is about Poppy and Alex, who have been best friends since college, even though they are complete opposites. Alex is your steadfast, very mellow, very calm and organized kind of guy. Poppy is your tiny, quirky, daydreamy kind of girl. They honestly have nothing in common, but they befriend each other during college, and every year since they first met, every summer they go on vacation together. I love the opposites attract trope, and Emily Henry wrote it so perfectly in this one. Both of Poppy and Alex's personalities just mesh so well and balanced each other out so well. Even though Poppy has wanderlust, she loves to travel, she finds a home in Alex, and Alex, who has always been a homebody, he lives in the same small town that they both grew up in. He finds a sense of adventure when he's with Poppy. So these two are just so adorable together. I love them. I love Emily Henry's writing. I love her sense of humor. I love her character's sense of humor. So this book was great. It's also set up in a way where it's told in past and present timelines. In the present timeline, Poppy and Alex have been estranged for 2 years. Something happened 2 years ago during their vacation that tore them apart, and they haven't really talked to each other since then, which is crazy because they always texted each other. They always kept in contact even when they weren't on vacation. And every other chapter were their summers ever since their first meeting, where they went on vacation every year and just all the fun that they had. And during the present years, Poppy is taking Alex on their one final vacation together before they both just drift apart. She's trying her very best to mend their relationship, mend their friendship, even though you can obviously tell something is definitely going on between them. The friendship was so sweet and adorable. It honestly just had me smiling. They are so much fun together. And then when feelings deepened and they finally came up to the surface, I was swooning. I love this one. I think if you loved Beach Read, you will probably love this one because that's what happened to me. I can only hope that Emily Henry continues to write more adult romances because I am just the biggest fan. I sadly don't have an arc of People We Meet on Vacation like my Beach Read arc, but I'm thinking I'm gonna get the Book of the Month hardcover. I just loved it so much. I do have a link down below if you want to get a Book of the Month hardcover for $5. I do get a credit if you sign up. The next author that I read was Lily Menon with Makeup Breakup. Lily Menon is also known as Sandhya Menon, who I had heard of before. I think I actually own one of her books, but I just never read it. But Lily Menon is the only author for this video where the author decided to write in a pen name, to write her romance with a pen name. All the other authors kept their author names. They wrote their adult romances with the same name that they wrote their YA books. So Makeup Breakup is Lily Menon's adult debut romance that released in 2021. I was very excited to read a romance with a heroine who worked in STEM, who worked in tech. Sadly, this one just didn't work for me. I give it 3 stars, like 2.5 to 3 stars. I was definitely disappointed with it. I expected a lot more. The writing was good. It wasn't bad. I was just bored with the story. It's kind of a second chance romance, but it's also definitely a rivals to lovers romance. Annika and Hudson had a fling years ago, but now they are rival app developers. Annika's dating app is all about helping and saving failing relationships, whereas Hudson's app is still on the dating spectrum, but more along the lines of helping people break up their relationships. Her app is called Makeup, his is Breakup, so very fitting. Hudson and his company have also just moved in next door. Hudson and his company have also just moved in next door to the office next door to Annika's, so there is quite a lot of forced proximity. They run into each other in the building, in the elevators, so that part is still pretty cute. I just had some trouble with the romance. I was not feeling it. Annika believes that Hudson stole her dating app idea, so she does not like the guy. Hudson does nothing but provoke her, and it wasn't really in a cute way. It takes a long time for Annika to ever warm back up to Hudson, and during this time time, Hudson wasn't really doing anything romantic to make me fall for him either. So I was struggling with both of these characters, and I do wish that we got Hudson's point of view in this book. It's only told in Annika's point of view. I feel like if we'd gotten Hudson's point of view, it would have endeared me to him a lot more and even endeared me to Annika more too. Sadly, it's just in Annika's point of view, and all she's feeling really is anger and distrust. I'm really sad I didn't like this one more. I had a lot of hopes for it, but it ended up being just an okay read, slightly disappointing. I wouldn't say no to reading more from Lily Menon, because like I said, I did like her writing. I just wasn't a big fan of these characters or their story. And then I read Rachel Lynn Solomon with The X-Talk. Her adult debut, The X-Talk, came out this year in 2021. Her name wasn't completely new to me like Emily Henry's was. I probably only heard of her through Twitter. Never seen one of her YA books before, but I was still really excited about The X-Talk, and I enjoyed this one so much I give it 4 stars. I love the unique premise of this one. It's about 2 public radio show hosts. It's an office romance. It's slightly enemies to lovers, and it's also got the fake dating trope. Shay, the heroine, has been a radio producer for a very long time. She's been working at her radio station for a very long time, and Dominic is a fairly new hire. He's fresh out of his master's and just won't stop talking about his degree, which is why Shay is not the biggest fan of his. Her radio station has been cutting down on shows, and in order for her to not get cut alongside these shows, Shay proposes a new show called The X-Talk, where 2 exes talk about relationships, give relationship advice, and of course Shay is paired up with none other than Dominic. Even though neither of them have ever been in a relationship, so they are not exes, but they have to pretend to be for this public radio show. So it's either lying for their job or they lose that job. I really enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed the romance. It's slightly slow burn. Once Shay starts to warm up to Dominic, she is feeling very conflicted about having feelings for her fake ex. This is another book where it's told only in the heroine's point of view, but I at least enjoyed it more because I was able to get more feelings from the hero, even just from the heroine's point of view. I just really like Shay and Dominic. There's a little bit of groveling towards the end that I always love. I also love the interspersed chapters of the scripts that Shay and Dominic have for their episodes, for their show episodes. Those were really great. It showed a lot of the chemistry that Shay and Dominic had, even though they're fake exes and they've never been together before. It was just a really great contemporary romance, contemporary debut. I wouldn't really call it a rom-com though. It does say it's a romantic comedy on the back, but it's definitely not the laugh out loud funny type of rom-com. It's just more on the light and flirty type of contemporary romance. And the last YA turned adult romance author that I read was Trish. I read Flute Plan, which was her new release this year, and I say romance, but it's more along the lines of women's fiction, and they at least say it's an adult fiction debut on the back, but I figured I would throw her into this video because why not? I already own this book, and Trish is the only author that I read back when she was a YA author. And actually the YA book that I read, Where the Stars Still Shine, was one of the first arcs that I ever got as a blogger, so that was really exciting because 8 years later here I am with her adult debut. Flute Plan is pretty short and quick to read, but it definitely packs a punch. It is the most emotional out of all 5 books that I read. The story centers around the heroine, Anna, and her journey of grief and finding love again. Her boyfriend, her fiance, actually committed suicide about a year earlier, and she's about to set out on their plan to sail around the world in his boat. She quits her job on the spot and just goes sailing out on that boat, even though she has no sailing experience. She surprisingly makes her first trip, but not without an almost accident, and she realizes that she can't really do what she is setting out to do, so she sets out a little help wanted ad, and that's where Keon comes in. Keon is a professional sailor who is no longer professionally sailing because of his ruined leg. He got in an accident, he was forced to lose his leg, and now no one will hire him except Anna, of course, and they both head off to sail around the Caribbean. The romance is slow and not the main focus of the story, of course. It's more focusing on Anna and her grief, learning how to deal with the death of her fiance, and moving on from it. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it overall, but I just had a bit of struggle with all the sailing terminology. There is so much of it, and I liked Anna and Keon, but I just never fully loved them. The romance is slow, but I mean, I wasn't surprised by that. Anna has a lot to deal with, a lot to learn about herself before she can let herself self-love again. Also, I wish there was more at the end. I am definitely an epilogue kind of girl. I love epilogues, and sadly this one doesn't have one. Still, it's not a bad read if you love your books on the more emotional side. Float Plan would be great. Sadly, I didn't love this one quite as much as Trish Doller's YA book that I read way back when. I gave that one 4 stars. I just reread the review that I wrote for that YA book, and I talk about how I requested that book off of NetGalley because of the gorgeous cover, and apparently some things just never change. Those were the 5 books that I read from these 5 YA turned adult romance authors. Let me know if you've read any of them, either their YAs or their adult books. That's it for today's video. Thank you again to Kiss for sponsoring this video. I'll link everything, all the books that I mentioned, down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!